I worked as a nursing assistant at a hospital while studying for medical school. Most nights were routine, but a few months ago, everything changed during my shift. Looking back, I still question what happened. It started off like any other night. I checked in with my supervisor, who handed me a list of tasks. The usual sounds of the hospital faded as I walked down the dim hallways. The humming fluorescent lights felt eerie. As the hours ticked by, a suffocating silence settled in, making my skin crawl. Around 1 a.m. I walked past room 206 when I heard it. A soft cry. My heart raced. Was someone in trouble? I hesitated, then opened the door. The room was empty. No patient, no sounds, nothing. My forehead beaded with sweat, and a chill crawled down my spine. I left the room quickly, trying to push away the feeling of dread. As I went about my duties, I managed to shake off the weirdness, at least for a while. A little later, I was in the break room when a patient approached me. She looked exhausted, eyes wide and tired. "Alex," she said. I froze. I had never seen this woman before. "Can I help you?" I asked, my voice trembling. She just stared at me, an emotion I couldn't place flickering in her gaze. I felt uneasy and walked away, shaking my head. The next shift was even more unsettling. I walked into room 304 to check on a patient, but the air hit me like a cold wave. The temperature inside was freezing. I glanced around for a window or a vent, but everything was sealed. I hugged myself tightly, feeling watched. It made me uncomfortable. I left quickly, but the feeling never left me. By the last night of my shift, I was exhausted and jittery. I was sitting at the nurse's station writing notes when I noticed something out of the corner of my eye. A shadow passed by the glass doors leading to the emergency room. My heart pounded. I stood up slowly and walked over to the door. I peered outside, but only darkness greeted me. My throat tightened. I felt like something was lurking just beyond my view. Suddenly, I heard the cries again, louder this time. It was like they were echoing in my mind. I spun around. The temperature in the room dropped suddenly. "Help me," a voice whispered. I gasped and glanced toward the doors. Nobody was there. Panic surged through me and I wanted to run. A million questions flooded my mind. Was I losing it? Or was something supernatural happening? I couldn't make sense of it. I wondered if the hospital was hiding dark secrets, or if I had truly lost my mind. Those unsettling encounters stayed with me, leaving me to question what I really experienced those nights. The days after my last shift dragged on. I tried to focus on my studies, but my mind kept drifting back to the hospital. I could hardly sleep, the memories flooding back like unwanted guests. Each night, I replayed every incident in my head, searching for some clue I might have missed. On my next shift, I was filled with dread and curiosity. Walking through the hospital's halls felt different as I nervously approached room 206 again. I had to know what was happening. Maybe I'd see something. Anything that could explain the strange occurrences. As I stood outside, I felt a shiver run down my spine. Taking a deep breath, I pushed the door open. The room was empty once more, but my eyes fell upon a small piece of paper on the floor. "Don't be afraid," it read in shaky handwriting. I picked it up, my hands trembling. Who had left this? Then, I heard a soft giggle, like a child's laughter echoing in the empty room. My heart pounded as I looked around, but there was nothing. Panic gripped me, and I dropped the note and bolted back into the hallway. What was going on? I couldn't shake off the feeling that something supernatural was at play. At the nurse's station, I desperately tried to act normal, but my colleague Jenny noticed my unease. "Are you okay?" she asked, concern tracing her face. I didn't want to burden her with my worries, so I forced a smile and shrugged. "Just tired, I guess," I replied, though that wasn't the whole truth. As the night crept on, I felt the heaviness in the air return. I went to check on my patients, determined to distract myself. Each room I entered felt colder and more isolating. The silence was unbearable. Then, when I walked into room 401, I could see my breath in front of me. It was like entering a freezer. I scanned the room, panic rising inside me. A figure stood at the foot of the bed, obscured by shadows. I blinked, and the figure vanished, A mix of dread and confusion set in. What had I just seen? I rushed back to the nurse's station, my mind racing. I had to gather my thoughts. As I sat down, I noticed my hands were shaking. That's when I heard the voice again. "Help me." It was faint, but I was sure of it. "Who's there?" I whispered, trying not to sound scared. The air around me seemed to thicken, and I could feel eyes on me. I couldn't breathe. My instincts screamed at me to leave. In that moment, I made the decision that would change everything. I needed answers. I grabbed my phone and searched for any history of the hospital. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I had to know. The shifting shadows in the corners of the rooms wouldn't let me rest until I uncovered the truth. That's when a notification popped up. An article about a former patient's mysterious disappearance caught my eye. I read through it, my heart racing with every line. The last name felt strangely familiar, but I couldn't place it. I felt an overwhelming sensation wash over me. I may have just stumbled onto something that could explain the hauntings. Then everything went dark. I stumbled backward, my heart racing as the darkness enveloped me. It felt like a heavy blanket, pressing down on my chest. I blinked rapidly, trying to adjust my eyes, but nothing changed. I felt disoriented and utterly alone. Finally, lights flickered back on, revealing the familiar space of the nurse's station. I gasped, grasping the edge of the table to steady myself. The article had vanished from my screen. Panic surged as I frantically tapped my phone, but the signal was gone too. "Hey!" I heard someone call out. It was Jenny, her brow furrowed in concern. I turned to her, trying to catch my breath. "What happened? You just disappeared for a minute." I don't know," I stuttered, my voice wavering. "I was reading something, and then it all just went dark." She looked puzzled but didn't press further. "Let's get back to work. You'll feel better once you're busy." I nodded, though a seed of doubt lingered. Everything felt wrong, and I needed to figure it out. The hours dragged on, and the feeling of dread only intensified. The laughter from room 206 echoed in my mind, taunting me. I was determined to confront whatever was happening. I decided to revisit that room, needing clarity more than ever. The dim corridor felt different as I approached room 206. My footsteps were silent like a whisper against the tiled floor. I hesitated at the door, taking a deep breath before pushing it open. The room was as I left it, still empty, but the air felt charged, like static electricity. That's when I noticed something new. The closet door stood slightly ajar. My heart raced as I walked closer, drawn to it against my better judgment. I could hear my own breathing, loud and frantic in the silent room. With shaking hands, I reached out and pulled the door open. Inside, a dusty old doll sat, its glassy eyes staring blankly at me. I felt an inexplicable connection, as though it was waiting for me. The note from before flashed in my mind. "Don't be afraid." But I was afraid. I was terrified. "Why are you here?" I whispered to the doll, my voice trembling. I felt foolish talking to an inanimate object, but it was almost like I expected an answer. As I turned it over in my hands, I noticed something odd. There was a name stitched into the back of the dress. Emily. My mind raced. The name of the missing patient was Emily. I felt the air shift around me, heavy with tension. Suddenly, the laughter echoed in the room again, clearer this time. "Help me!" The voice was louder, desperate. My heart thundered in my ears, and I dropped the doll as I stumbled back. It crashed to the floor, the sound echoing like a gunshot. But that wasn't the only thing that crashed. The closet door slammed shut, and I swear I felt something brush past me. I froze, dread pooling in my stomach. That's when I heard it. The unmistakable sound of footsteps approaching. Someone was coming, and I was not alone. I squeezed my eyes shut, hoping the sound would disappear. It didn't. The steps grew louder, echoing in the corridor just outside the room. I pressed my back against the wall, heart pounding. I needed to leave, to get away from this room, but my feet felt glued to the floor. Then I remembered Jenny. She was just down the hall. Maybe she'd know what was happening. I took a deep breath, ready to bolt, when the footsteps suddenly stopped. Silence swallowed the space, heavy and oppressive. My mind raced. Was it possible someone had come to check on Emily? Or was it something else? I took a cautious step toward the door, but my body trembled with fear. I needed to know what. I needed to see. I managed to inch closer, gripping the doorknob, when I heard a faint whisper. "Help me." It was soft, almost pleading. I hesitated, caught between curiosity and terror. In that moment, the door swung open, nearly hitting me. I stumbled back, not expecting the force. Standing there was a tall figure, framed in the dim light of the corridor. "What are you doing?" a voice barked, snapping me out of my daze. It was Sean, one of the night aides. He looked confused, glancing at me and then at the open closet. "Were you in here alone?" I heard something," I stuttered, trying to find my voice. Footsteps, and the laughter. "In here." Sean frowned, stepping inside the room. "There's nothing here." He turned toward the closet and opened it wider. The doll lay on the floor, discarded and lifeless. "You scared me. You know that?" He leaned closer, inspecting the closet. "This place plays tricks on you. You're letting your imagination run wild." My pulse quickened again. "No, really. I swear I heard a voice." I felt a wave of frustration crash over me. I knew what I heard. I could still feel the air around me thrumming with energy, but I couldn't make him see it. He shrugged, obviously unconvinced. "Come on, it's just an old doll. Let's get you back to the station." I tightened my grip on the doorframe, grounding myself. "Wait," I said, pointing to the doll. "Its name is Emily, the missing patient." Sean's expression shifted. "Yeah, so?" "Something is wrong here," I pressed. "The room feels wrong." Before he could respond, the lights flickered again, casting eerie shadows. My breath caught. In the brief darkness, I saw something dart past the doorway. I squinted, straining to tease out the fleeting shape. "Did you see that?" I gasped. Sean's eyes widened with uncertainty. "See what?" The flickering ceased, plunging us back into fluorescent light. I stepped closer to the hallway, trying to catch another glimpse, but all I saw was an empty corridor. Just as I was about to dismiss my worry, a sudden crash echoed behind me. Something had knocked over a tray in the nurse's station. The sound was so loud it sent a chill down my spine. "Let's check it out," Sean said, leading the way, but I didn't want to leave the room. Not yet. I turned back one last time, feeling a sense of loss wash over me. As we stepped away, I remembered the doll's glassy eyes. I couldn't shake the feeling that somehow Emily was still here, waiting for me to uncover the truth. And that truth felt dangerously close. The crash echoed in my ears as Sean pushed the door wide open. I trailed behind him reluctantly, glancing back at the room. The darkness seemed to reach for me. I shook my head, forcing myself to focus on the task at hand. Whatever had happened in that room, I couldn't let it consume me. The nurse's station was dimly lit, shadows flickering ominously. I noticed a tray on the floor. Its contents, a few scattered cups and papers, lay strewn about. "What the hell?" Sean muttered, kneeling down to pick up the mess. I stepped closer, eyes darting around. "Did someone knock that over?" "Looks like it," he said, still picking up cups. "But no one else is here." A strange feeling coursed through me. The hairs on my arms stood at attention, and a strange sense of being watched wrapped around me. I scanned the room. "Where are all the other aides?" Sean shrugged, distracted by the cleanup. "Probably in the break room. It's quiet tonight." "Too quiet," I whispered. A chill ran down my back, but I kept my voice steady. "You think it's normal for a place like this?" He paused, looking up at me with raised eyebrows. "What do you mean?" "This hospital is supposed to be bustling. Something feels off," I said, heart racing. I glanced toward the corridor behind me, half expecting to see a figure lurking. "It's not just the doll, it's everything." Sean stood, brushing his hands on his scrubs. "Maybe you need a break. Take some water." As he headed towards the sink, I caught a glimpse of movement near the far end of the corridor. Just a flicker at the edge of my vision. but it felt real. "Did you see that?" I asked, voice barely above a whisper. He turned, squinting down the hall. "See what?" "There, I swear I saw someone." He laughed awkwardly, trying to ease the tension. "It's probably just your imagination. It's late and you're jumpy." I shook my head, feeling a knot tightening in my stomach. "No, it didn't feel like that." Suddenly, the overhead lights went out, plunging the station into darkness. My breaths came faster, panic tightening around my chest. "Sean?" No response. I felt around for something, anything to grab onto. The clinking of metal echoed behind me, causing me to jump. I could barely make out the shapes around me, shifting shadows moving in the corners of my vision. "Sean!" I shouted, my voice cracking. I heard footsteps, quick and hurried. "Where are you?" Then, almost as suddenly as it had gone dark, the lights flickered back on, revealing Sean standing stock still, his eyes wide. "What is it?" I asked, my voice trembling. His gaze was fixed down the corridor. "I saw her." "Who?" There was a beat of silence. "Emily." I felt my heart drop. Did he mean the doll? Or the missing patient? I stepped closer to him, adrenaline coursing through my veins. "What do you mean?" Before he could answer, another crash sounded, this time from a nearby supply closet. A figure stumbled out, blocking the exit. My blood ran cold. I felt trapped. "Who's there?" But no answer came, just a chilling silence, punctuated only by my hammering heartbeat. The figure staggered into the light and the moment felt frozen. It was a woman, disheveled and wide-eyed, her clothes a tangle of pale fabric. My heart raced as I took in the sight of her. She seemed lost, like she had just stepped out of a nightmare. "Help me," she managed to say, her voice trembling. "Who are you?" I croaked out, instinct kicking in. "What happened?" She looked behind her, panic dancing in her eyes. They know I'm here," she whimpered, stepping closer. I could see the desperate fear etched on her face, and it echoed my own rising dread. "Sean, what's going on?" I asked, clutching his arm, but he was staring past the woman now, his expression shifting from shock to something darker. "What is she doing here? How did she get in?" he muttered, stepping back as if her mere presence were infectious. "Wait, what do you mean?" I was confused. "What do you know about her?" "I don't know anything, but she shouldn't be here. No one should," he replied, his voice rising with urgency. The woman took a step forward again, pushing her hair back with shaky hands. "Please, I don't have much time. You have to help me. She's coming." "Who's coming?" I demanded, the knot in my stomach tightening even more. "What did you see?" Suddenly a loud thud echoed from the far end of the corridor, a heavy sound that seemed to shake the very walls. My breath caught in my throat. The woman's eyes widened further, and a tear rolled down her cheek. "She's here!" she cried, backing away towards the supply closet as if it could provide sanctuary. "Get behind us!" Sean shouted, positioning himself in front of me, his protective instinct flaring. I felt a strange mix of fear and nausea. I didn't know who to trust. "What do you want us to do?" I yelled, feeling the panic pulse through me. The uncertainty in the air was palpable, but the woman didn't answer. She was shaking her head, eyes wild. Just then, the lights flickered again, and for a heartbeat, everything went dark once more. I felt the weight of unseen eyes bearing down on us. Then just as suddenly the lights erupted back to life, and I could see the woman gripping the edge of the supply closet door, looking more terrified than ever. And that's when I saw it. Standing behind her, partly obscured by the shadows, was a figure. A dark shape, unmistakably human, but wrong in every way. My skin crawled as I locked eyes with it, and the world fell silent, the air thick with dread. "Run!" Sean screamed. With those words as my cue, the instinct kicked in. I turned, grabbing Sean's arm, pulling him towards the entrance. The woman was forgotten for the moment. My feet pounded against the tiles as we raced down the corridor, every instinct screaming to escape whatever horror was lurking behind us. As we raced away, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. We sprinted past the nurses' station, and I barely noticed the vacant looks of the staff as they stared at us. It was as if we had crossed into another world, and they were only phantoms under some spell. I caught a glimpse of Sean's face, and I could see his own fear reflected back at me. We raced down the stairwell, taking each step two at a time. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed ominously, casting a harsh glow on the concrete. I could hear Sean's heavy breathing next to me, and my heart was pounding in my chest. We reached the ground floor, and I pushed open the exit door. The cold air hit us like a slap in the face, but it felt like freedom. "Where do we go?" I asked, looking around for some sign of where to hide. The parking lot stretched out before us, empty and foreboding. "Anywhere but here," Sean replied, his eyes scanning the shadows. "We need to get to the security office." The urgency in his voice shot a pulse of adrenaline through me. We darted around parked cars, every sound amplified by the silence. I kept glancing over my shoulder, half expecting to see that dark figure emerge from the hospital's entrance in pursuit. "Do you think she followed us?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know," Sean said, shaking his head, his face drawn tight with worry. "But we shouldn't stick around to find out." As we neared the security office, I noticed a flickering light coming from the window. "Do you see that?" I pointed. "Is anyone in there?" "Let's check," Sean said, a hint of hope breaking through the panic that clouded us. We approached the door, still holding our breath. I reached for the handle and paused. "What if it's someone else? What if they're—" "Just open it," he urged. I turned the handle and pushed the door open. The room was dark, the screens displaying grainy footage of various areas in the hospital, but no one was inside. My heart sank as we stepped in. Just then, the screen nearest us flickered, and an image popped up. A surveillance feed showed the corridor outside, the one we had just sprinted down. And there, standing in the middle of the hallway, was the woman from before. She looked ghostly, her expression all too familiar, fearful, frantic. "What is she doing?" Sean breathed, leaning closer as if he could somehow grasp her reality through the screen. Then suddenly the feed changed. The figure that had been lurking behind her filled the screen. It was closer now, the shadows revealing haunting details of its features, a twisted face frozen in a grin that made my stomach churn. "We need to go, now," I blurted, adrenaline surging again. But before I could turn to leave, the door creaked behind us. A cold dread washed over me. I turned slowly, and there she was again. The woman. But she wasn't alone this time. The dark figure stood right beside her, lurking, as if feeding off her fear. "Help me," she whispered, and the plea in her voice pierced through the air. Panic surged through me as the door behind us slammed shut, trapping us inside. I felt the walls closing in, every instinct telling me we needed to escape. But it felt too late. Then everything went dark. My eyes shot open, the darkness pressing in on all sides. I fought to catch my breath. The air was stale, thick with tension. I reached to my side, desperately searching for Sean. But my hand met nothing but the cold floor. Panic twisted in my gut. "Sean?" I whispered, my voice trembling. No response. Just the echo of my heart pounding in my ears. I pushed myself up, still surrounded by blackness. It was suffocating. As I slowly turned, I felt a cold draft brush against my skin. I squinted, trying to make out shapes in the dark, but nothing revealed itself. Was that the door we came through? I hesitated, uncertain. I needed to find Sean. He couldn't be far. I crawled toward where I thought the door might be, one hand outstretched in front of me, the other resting against the wall. My fingers brushed against something hard, a monitor. I froze, fear coursing through me. I flipped it on. Light flooded the room, illuminating the faces on the screens. They were all blank, the feeds disrupted except for one. The dark figure loomed large, once again frozen in that haunting grin. I recoiled, a scream catching in my throat. My time was running out. I needed to find Sean before... A sudden noise broke through my thoughts. A man's voice. "Help is here." The relief was palpable, but I hesitated. Was it real? Or was this another trick? "Sean? Is that you?" I called out, my voice barely audible over the dread brewing inside me. "Not just Sean," the voice replied, echoing off the walls. It sent shivers down my spine. We know all about you two now. I felt the air shift, a presence invading the small space. In a swift movement, I turned the monitor around, expecting to see someone standing behind me. But there was no one. It was just me in the glow of cold electronics. The voice returned, sharper this time. You should have stayed away. You don't belong here. My heart raced at the threat in those words. I bolted toward the door, my hand shaking as I gripped the handle. To my surprise, it swung open easily. I stumbled into the hallway, the lights flickering ominously above. The air felt charged, thick with unseen danger. "Sean!" I yelled again, desperation creeping into my tone. I took off down the corridor, the flickering lights only adding to the sense of dread. Then I stopped short, seeing a shadow move up ahead. Someone stepped out of the darkness and my body went tense. It was the woman. My throat tightened. "Please, you have to help me. He's coming." "Who? Who is coming?" I asked, my voice shaking. "The one you saw. He feeds off fear. We need to leave now." Her eyes were wild, filled with panic. Before I could respond, a low growl echoed down the hall, vibrating through my bones. It wasn't just a sound. It felt alive. Hungry. I looked back at the woman, her face pale with terror. "Go!" she urged, pointing down another corridor. "This way." I hesitated for just a moment, but this couldn't be worse than staying here. New fear gripped me, and with no choice, I sprinted down the hallway as she led the way, the echo of that haunting growl following close behind. The shadows danced around me as I ran, but then I heard another voice calling, clearer this time, "Sean." I stopped dead in my tracks, torn between following the woman or finding my friend. I felt the cold breath of something sinister on my neck, and I made my choice. I had to get to Sean. Just as I pivoted, I heard footsteps approaching quickly behind me, and a scream burst from my throat. "Sean!" I turned, my heart racing in my chest. The corridor stretched out before me like an endless tunnel, shadows creeping along the walls like fingers reaching for me. "Sean!" My voice echoed back, mocking. I took a step back toward the woman, but the growl intensified, and I knew I had to move. I dashed down the corridor, the dim light flickering above me, illuminating the path just enough to see. I could hear my own frantic breathing mixing with the thuds of my panicked heartbeat. The walls felt like they were closing in. "Sean!" I shouted again, hoping the sound would reach him. It was like throwing a message into the void. Suddenly, the growl morphed into a throaty laugh that chilled me to the bone. "You think you can run?" A voice taunted from the shadows. It was dark and raspy, making every hair on my body stand on end. I stumbled forward, not daring to look back. Each step felt heavier, as if the ground was pulling me down. I turned a corner, desperately searching for any signs of Sean. The hallways twisted and turned, each one a mirror of the last. As I rounded another corner, I slammed into something solid. I looked up, my heart dropping. It was a figure blocking my way. His face was obscured by shadows, but the presence felt suffocating. "You shouldn't have come here," he murmured, a sinister grin spreading across his face. "Let me through," I shouted, my voice cracking with fear. He leaned closer, and I caught a glimpse of sharp teeth glinting in the low light. "Your friend is lost, just like you." His breath was cold and smelled of decay. My instincts screamed at me to flee. I shoved past him, adrenaline fueling my flight. I could hear him laughing behind me, a sound that echoed off the walls, wrapping around me like a shroud. I rounded another corner and saw a door at the end of the hallway. I sprinted toward it, my hands reaching for the handle. Before I could turn it, another growl thundered through the air, and I froze. It was closer this time. "Sean!" I screamed again, hoping he'd somehow hear me. I yanked the door open with all my strength and stumbled inside, slamming it shut behind me. The room was dimly lit, filled with old medical equipment covered in dust. I took a deep breath, my sides heaving. The echoes of the street outside seemed distant now, as if I had crossed into another reality. I looked around, desperate for some sign of Sean. Suddenly I heard a soft whimper. My heart leaped. "Sean, is that you?" I called out, moving closer to the sound. My eyes adjusted to the gloom, and I spotted a figure curled up on the floor. It was him. Relief flooded through me, but then I noticed the smudges on his skin, dark streaks that looked like bruises. Fear twisted again within me. What happened? I knelt beside him. Did you see him? Sean's voice was weak, his eyes wide with terror. He's everywhere. He's watching us. It was then that I heard a soft scraping sound behind me. I turned slowly, dread creeping back into my bones, and saw a shadow slipping through the door. I couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't safe yet. "We have to go," I said urgently, gripping Sean's arm to pull him up. But as he stood, the air changed. The laughter echoed once more, and in that horrific moment, I understood. It knew we were here. "Run!" I yelled, pushing him toward the only exit. Just as we took off, the room plunged into darkness. My heart raced as we stumbled through the inky blackness. I could feel the weight of fear pressing against us, urging us to move faster. I couldn't tell where the walls were, but I kept my grip firm on Sean's arm, pulling him forward. "This way!" I shouted, though I had no idea if I was leading us in the right direction or deeper into the nightmare. Just as I felt the edge of the door frame behind us, light erupted, flickering to life and momentarily blinding me. I blinked against the glare, the brightness illuminating the surreal scene. The shadows began to recede, but the figure, the one lurking just outside our door, was still there, eyes glinting with malicious intent. "Keep going," Sean urged, and we barreled into the hallway, the darkness becoming a chase behind us. I didn't dare to look back. I concentrated solely on moving, my legs pumping as adrenaline surged through my veins. We raced down the hall, not stopping until we reached a set of double doors leading to the stairwell. As we burst through, I could still hear its growl echoing behind us. I slammed the door, panting heavily, but I didn't feel safe yet. "We can't just stand here," I said frantically. "We need to get out of this place." "Maybe the roof?" Sean suggested, still looking fierce but shaken. "We can signal for help." I nodded even as dread pooled in my stomach. The idea of being trapped at the top of the building felt almost as terrifying. But there was little choice now. We had to put distance between ourselves and the figure still lurking in the shadows. We climbed the stairs two at a time, the footsteps pounding as we moved. A flickering bulb flickered overhead, casting eerie shadows that twisted against the walls. My mind raced with possibilities, not just about the thing pursuing us, but about the woman, Emily, and the mystery of her disappearance. I couldn't help feeling that we were being drawn into a horror far deeper than we understood. At last we reached the roof door and I threw it open. The chill of the night air hit us like a gust of relief, but the sense of danger lingered, thickening the atmosphere. I stepped out onto the roof, looking for a safe place to check our surroundings. Sean followed closely behind, clearly shaken but still determined. "What do we do now?" he panted, scanning the emptiness around us. "Just look for something," I said tightly, glancing over the edge of the building toward the parking lot. "We need to make a noise or wave something to get help." Before I could finish, a howl cut through the air, a sound of frustration mixed with something primal. I whirled around, heart dropping. The figure was on the rooftop, emerging from the shadows as if the darkness itself had given birth to it. The grotesque smile stretched wide across its face, nothing like a human, and it took a step toward us. "Get back!" I screamed, forcing Sean to take a step back. We were cornered. The roof was clear, but there was no escape from the unholy presence before us. As the apparition neared, the winds whipped around us, and I could feel an overwhelming surge of dread, as if it were feeding on my very fear. "What do we do?" Sean asked, panic rising in his voice. There was a moment of silence. The wind howled around us, and I took a deep breath, feeling a flicker of defiance. "We fight." I grabbed a piece of debris, an old metal rod lying nearby. Sean caught my determination and picked up another object. As we stood firm, ready to confront this terror, something shifted in the air. The ghostly figure hesitated, its smile wavering. "Bring it on!" I shouted, feeling somehow emboldened. But just as our threats resonated, the figure lunged, and everything disintegrated into chaos. The ground shook as we backpedaled, and just as the figure seemed to lunge for us, an enormous crash sounded through the stillness. The rooftop door burst open, and Jenny appeared, pixelated against that moment of fear. "I found you," she screamed. "The security team is here. Come on." My thoughts fractured, and in that split second I could scarcely register what happened next. I felt a force pull me backward, the overwhelming presence of darkness wrenching me away. I screamed Sean's name as the world spun out beneath me, the shadows swirling until everything dissolved into a cascade of moments, memories, echoes of laughter overlapping with cries for help. And then, just as suddenly as it all began, I awoke. I was outside, the sun shining through the treetops. Confusion enveloped me. I was sprawled on the grass, surrounded by paramedics and my supervisor. "What happened? Where's Sean?" I gasped, my voice trembling from the remnants of fear I had barely escaped. "We're here," Sean's voice reached me, and I whipped my head around to find him pacing, still alive but looking just as shaken as I felt. The team was buzzing around us, but the memory of the dark figure lingered on my skin. Even as I was pronounced okay, a strange sense of wrongness crept back into my thoughts. The shadow had become a shape in my mind, something ominous and undefined. And yet, there was a premonition that not all was over. Not entirely. I could still hear whispers in the back of my mind, reiterating that echo. "Help me." As we were whisked away toward the ambulance, I could feel the gaze of something still watching, clinging to the edges of my reality. Could I have imagined all of it? Or had I truly escaped something far worse than I could name? I constantly replayed the events of the night, their uncertainty haunting me. I could never quite articulate what I saw, supernatural or merely figments of an overworked mind. Either way, it changed me. And yet as I looked over my shoulder, half expecting to see my pursuer lurking in the shadows, I realized, some questions will always remain unresolved.